Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for July 17th, 2017. This is Peter Sciretta. I just spent the last 3 days in Anaheim, California at D23 Expo, and that's basically the Disney fan convention. They hold it every 2 years, and they roll out the footage and news for their films for the next 2, 3, and even more years in the future. So we got to see the future of what is happening at not only Disney Animation, Pixar, Lucasfilm, and Marvel, and the Disney theme parks. So today's edition of Slash Film Daily is not a news rundown. Well, it is kind of, but it's a news rundown of everything that I saw at D23 Expo. So if you haven't been following the news, there's a lot to catch up on. So let's dive into it. First up on Friday was a panel for Disney and Pixar, and they talked about Frozen 2, which will be called Frozen 2. It's not going to have a subtitle, or at least not for now. And they showed a scene musical number from Olaf's Frozen Adventure, which is the new 21-minute short film that's going to arrive with Pixar's Coco later this year. And it was fine. The song is not as catchy as Let It Go. It has Olaf going around town basically asking the people of the town their family holiday traditions, and there's some fun to be had. One of the biggest pieces of news to come out of the panel is that John Lasseter, head of Pixar, is no longer directing Toy Story 4. Instead, his co-director, Josh Cooley, is going to come in and step in and be the director for that film. This is news that is coming out now to the general public, but this is something I've known for over a year now. So this isn't something new. Behind the scenes at Pixar, Josh Cooley has been directing the film for a while. I'm not sure exactly why John Lasseter stepped down. I think probably he has bigger things to do in his day-to-day work than to direct a film. I think he has bigger responsibilities. But it is interesting because Toy Story 4 is this love story between Woody and Bo Peep, and it was supposed to be kind of like this tribute to John and from John to his wife. So it's interesting that he is stepping down from this. They showed us a first look at Wreck-It Ralph 2, which is called Ralph Breaks the Internet, Wreck-It Ralph 2. And basically the story for this one is that the arcade that they exist in has gotten Wi-Fi, and the Sugar Rush game that Vanellope von Sweets is in has broken down. So Ralph and Vanellope go into the internet to try to find a way to fix their arcade game, and the two go on this adventure through the world of the internet. The footage we saw was funny. Ralph, like them entering kind of this digital city that is the internet, and Ralph getting assaulted by a number of advertisements, pop-up advertisements. It then got weird, and this isn't a joke. This is what happened. There's a new character in this movie played by Taraji P. Henson, who plays Yes with 3 S's at the end, and she works for Buzzaholic, which is kind of like a BuzzFeed like website, and she kind of gives them a tour of the internet, and she takes them to ohmydisney.com, a place where all the fandoms come together, which is, yes, seems self-referential. And when we saw it on screen, I was like, is this a joke? Is this actually in the movie? But it's actually in the movie. And what happens is Ralph and Vanellope go in there, and inside the website is, Marvel characters, Pixar characters, Disney characters, Star Wars characters. They're, all coexisting in this one universe that is a website, kind of like how the characters in Wreck-It Ralph existed within their arcade games themselves. So this is, taking this concept one step farther. So I think what they're basically trying to do is what Roger Rabbit did for animated movies and Wreck-It Ralph did for video games. This is trying to do for the internet, if that makes sense. So in Oh My Disney, there are Tinkerbells flying around, a Millennium Falcon, a Marvel Fan Yourself booth. There's a Tsum Tsum pit. Baymax from Big Hero 6 is giving a Q&A on stage, and there's also a stage full of Disney princesses. And this is the scene that we kind of basically got to see where Vanellope sneaks into the princess's backstage room, and which is guarded by a stormtrooper, by the way. A First Order stormtrooper is guarding the princess's room. And I know what you're thinking right now, because this is exactly what I was thinking when I was watching this in the hall. This sounds stupid. Okay? Yes, it does sound stupid. But then once Vanellope gets backstage with the Disney princesses, there's this scene between Vanellope and all the Disney princesses. And by the way, it's a lineup that includes Mulan, Ariel, Belle, Jasmine, Elsa, Pocahontas, Tatiana, Rapunzel, Merida from Brave, Anna, and Moana. So, and all of those characters, I believe, or most of those characters, are voiced by the original voice actors. So it's this great scene where you get to see all these princesses interact with each other, and Vanellope's claiming that she's a princess, and it's I don't know, it's hard to convey over a podcast how funny and hilarious this scene is. At one point, Merida says something, and one of the other princesses says, "Don't worry about her. She's from another studio." And it's kind of that kind of thing. And I'm sure it will turn some people off because it is so very self-referential for Disney. But it was a treat, and it was probably one of the most talked about things at not only D23, but at that panel. I mean, not only that panel, but D23. So I'm highly looking forward to Wreck-It Ralph 2. Next up was Brad Bird with Incredibles 2, which we're all super excited for. We learned that this film is going to take place seconds after the first Incredibles. So the Incredibles have not changed that much, and their fight with the Underminer will start off this film. They were really tight-lipped about what this movie is going to be about, but we did learn that Bob has to stay home with Jack, who everybody is still unaware has powers. And Mrs. Incredible, Elastic Girl, will take center stage in this movie. So it's going to be basically Mrs. Incredible's movie for all purposes. We saw a early work in progress scene where basically Bob is at home with Jack, and a raccoon comes to their new house because their old house was destroyed in the first Incredibles. A raccoon comes to their new house, and and Bob is asleep, and Jack basically goes and uses his powers to scare the raccoon, and Bob realizes for the first time that Jack also has powers. Something we knew about in that Jack Attack short film that was on the Incredibles DVD and Blu-ray. But it is a revelation for the characters in this movie, and I guess that is part of the fun of this movie is that they also confirmed that Craig T. Nelson is back as Bob, Holly Hunter as Elastigirl, Sarah Vowell as Violet, and Samuel L. Jackson as Frozone. And young actor Huck Milner is stepping in for the voice of Dash, since the previous actor is too old to do that voice at this time. Pixar announced a new animated film that will take place in a suburban fantasy world. There's no title for the film quite yet. Dan Scanlon, who co-directed Monsters University, is directing this film, and he said it's based on a part of his childhood. He never got to meet his father, and he saw his father through photos and videos, and the videos were so old they didn't have sound. So he always wanted to hear what his father sounded like. And him and his brother searched, and they eventually found a cassette recording of him, which was a very small recording of him. But inspired by this search is this movie. It is a movie about two teenage boys who lose their father. They travel to a fantasy world in hopes of finding him to spend one last day with him. The description was brief, but they showed a lot of concept art. Basically, the movie takes place in this modern fantasy world. So imagine that we had fantasy, we had goblins, we had magic, but magic was a hard thing to do. And now in today's society, we have technology, which is easily taking place the place of this magic. So in this world, the unicorns are everywhere, and they're basically the rodents. They're the raccoons of this planet, and there's people live in these mushroom-like houses. But for the most part, it's like our modern society where we have computers and all this technology, iPhones. So it's an interesting concept. I can't wait to see more. The concept art was fantastic. Mixing the mundane with this fantasy world could be a fun conceit. Next up, they showed a preview of Pixar's Coco, which is directed by Lee Unkrich, who did Toy Story 3. And this reteams the Frozen songwriters for a Mexican set story, which revolves around the Day of the Dead. And basically, we saw a scene with Miguel, who his great-great-grandfather was this famous Mexican singer played by Benjamin Bratt, and he did not know that. He finds that out. He wants to follow in his footsteps and play music, follow his heart, but his family doesn't want him to play music. He goes out and tries to play in this talent show in the town, but he doesn't have a guitar. No one will let him borrow a guitar, and he has the brilliant idea of stealing his great-great-grandfather's guitar, which is in the his tomb that they celebrate him in. So he goes there on the Day of the Dead and attempts to steal the guitar, and of course, stealing the guitar puts him into the world of the dead. Nobody from the world of the living can see him. He is now in the world of the dead, and he now has a short time to go back to the world of the living before he is in the world of the dead forever. The animation and the effects and visually, this movie looks fantastic. I'm not sure, so far from what I've seen of the story or the characters aren't as compelling to me. I need to see more, but visually and musically, the movie looks pretty great. Then on Saturday, there was the live action panel, which showcased all the Disney live action movies, including Marvel, Star Wars, and Walt Disney live action. First up was a surprise, this movie called The Nutcracker in the Four Realms, which we didn't really know much about. It's coming out November 2nd, 2018, and it's they're pitching it as just how Walt Disney has reimagined all these classic tales in animation. This is Disney's attempt to reimagine The Nutcracker. And they showed us some early footage. The early footage looked, and it is still about ballet, but the early footage kind of looked, I want to say almost like Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. It didn't, it kind of fantastical and colorful, but they showed some concept art which looked a little bit more like Harry Potter meets Lord of the Rings, and that was more compelling to me. But it seems like it's very early. They didn't show us the Nutcracker himself. I'm sure once we see more finished footage, maybe that, the stuff that I saw in the concept art will come out more. And speaking of Alice, Tim Burton wasn't in attendance, but he sent a greeting from the Casey Jr. train on the set of Dumbo, which he's directing right now. And it looks like what you would think a Tim Burton Dumbo movie would look like. It looks a little bit like Alice, where it's very colorful and very stylistic, and they revealed some cast. You can read about that on slashfilm.com. They also showed Dumbo. They had a maquette of Dumbo. Looks exactly what you'd think Dumbo might look like in a live action film. He looks like a real elephant, a baby elephant, but he has a big forehead. And you can see photos of Dumbo online as well. The big surprise, I think, of the live action panel was Jon Favreau came out and showed this footage from The Lion King, and I think this was like pre-production footage. He had this rendered. It's like a teaser trailer, and basically it started with the African sunset, and I'm not sure, sunrise, sorry. I'm not sure if this will ever be released online. The African sunrise, and then we see all these animals like in the savannah. And honestly, when I was watching this, I was like, oh, they're showing us, clips that they had from a Disney nature film, because they look beautiful and they look real. But it soon became clear that even though these look even more lifelike than Jungle Book, that it was animated. And it came to the part that the monkey goes over to the lion cub and puts some paint on its head, and then takes it and raises it over the tribes. And the Circle of Light music is playing over this, and I can't tell you, being in a hall with 7,000 Disney fanatics, and I looked around, there were tears in their eyes. This footage looked fantastic. It looked real. Like, the Lion Cub looked real. It sneezed. It looked fantastic. I can't wait to see more of Jon Favreau's The Lion King. It looks like he's doing what we loved, the parts that we loved in Jungle Book, and he's amplified. He has figured out what people love and what he can do best here. So I'm very interested to see more. They're in production on that, and I don't think that comes out for a couple of years. So, but footage everybody was waiting for, Avengers Infinity War footage, was revealed, and I'll give you a quick description. Basically, that it started with the Guardians flying through space in their new spacecraft that we see at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And they come across this wreckage, and basically there's this person that hits, the dashboard of their spacecraft, and they go out and they get him and they bring him in, and it turns out to be Thor with the shorter hair. So this takes place after the events of Thor Ragnarok. What happened to Thor? We don't know. There was shots of people dead in the streets, Loki holding the cosmic cube from the first Avengers, Peter Parker on a school bus looking out at something, Star-Lord, Gamora. Everyone has this look on their face like, we're screwed. And then Thanos shows up, and we see Spider-Man in his new suit, that new tech suit, like the version 2, which looks insane, sitting on this huge circular object, maybe created by Tony Stark. Captain America now has a black beard. Thanos clutching Thor's head in his hand. He could just basically, just snap it very easily. And we also saw Thanos punching Iron Man. At one point, he takes a planet and rips it in half and throws it at the Avengers. The clip ended with Thanos holding the Infinity Gauntlet, which obviously is familiar to comic book fans, and then cut to the Avengers Infinity War logo. They didn't reveal any more details about the movie. They had a cast on stage that was, a huge cast of people that are in the movie. But the footage looked fantastic. The crowd went crazy. I'm not sure if they're going to show anything more at Comic-Con this Saturday, but the first footage was incredible. And Marvel also unveiled their Marvel 10-year logo, which is kind of cool, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of merchandise and stuff around that. You'll see that, I think, maybe in front of the films as well. They had a presentation of behind-the-scenes footage from Star Wars: The Last Jedi. You can see that online. Our own Ethan Anderton, aka Bradford Oman, did a frame-by-frame analysis of that footage, and you can read that on the site this morning. In addition to that, at the Marvel booth, they unveiled the minions of Thanos in Avengers Infinity War. He can't do it himself, so he has a group with him to help him out, and this group is the Black Order. You can go to slashfilm.com and read Jacob Hall's article. He shows the photo of these beautifully created maquette of these characters, showing what they look like and who they are, explaining their comic book backstories. Other than that, there was the Disney Parks panel, which was nonstop news. Disney Park panel had so many details. They unveiled that the Star Wars land is officially called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which is interesting because the night before that kind of leaked because Disney Parks blog, which is the official blog of Disney Parks, accidentally had an alt tag with that name, and we and many others picked that up. So that surprise was ruined. But they revealed a bunch of stuff. They talked about how the theme park is going to be this immersive experience, this interactive experience where you could, what you do on the Millennium Falcon simulator attraction and how well you handle that could follow you throughout the land. A bounty hunter could come after you if you wreck the ship in the cantina. If you are one of the hottest flight crews, you can earn extra credits, which could probably be used throughout the land. They revealed Rex, RX-24, who was the pilot for the original Star Tours, is going to be back, and he will be he'll be a DJ in the cantina, which is kind of cool. And they joked, oh, well, nothing can go wrong here, because obviously anytime Rex is involved, things go wrong. They mentioned that we might feel the wrath of Kylo Ren. But the big Star Wars Land thing at D23 was on the show floor. They had the gigantic model of Star Wars Land from Disney Imagineering, and you could go and look at it. And this model was, I can't stress to you, you could see the photos on slashfilm.com, but the photos do not do it justice because this thing was huge, and it makes it, you can see just how gigantic and enormous this land is going to be. It's cool. In one corner of the land is the Resistance base, which is kind of hidden in this like cave type area. The First Order is occupying the city, which is filled with all sorts of buildings, which we don't know what is inside those buildings. But there's this gigantic indoor market area, which is probably filled with all sorts of food and alien merchandise. And just check out. Oh, the other thing that I was surprised about is how many ships we see in this land. We see X-wings, full-size X-wings, full-size TIE fighters, including Poe's Black TIE fighter, a new ship I've never even seen before, which may or may not be from Episode 8 or 9. Actually, 2 new ships, and the Millennium Falcon is in a docking bay at the very back of the land, which is probably the entrance to the Millennium Falcon ride attraction. But go to slashfilm.com, check out the photos, get excited because it is exciting. Also announced during the park panel is that the Great Movie Ride will be leaving Disney's Hollywood Studios. This is the last remaining opening day attraction of that park. So, and it's going to be replaced with the first Mickey Mouse theme park ride, which is basically you're going to be in a movie theater and you're going to be watching basically Mickey and Minnie preparing for a picnic and going to the picnic. They're taking there's this train piloted by Goofy, and basically you go off. I feel like the screen like probably opens up or whatnot, and it becomes this dark ride where you're going through the world of Mickey and Minnie, which they described as it's not 3D. You don't wear 3D glasses, but it's 2.5D. And if you see it, it looks very stylistic, very projections to to transform the space into whatever they need throughout the ride. But go to the page, check out the images. You can see what it looks like. A lot of people are disappointed the Great Movie Ride is going, but you know what? I think this will allow them more room for Star Wars Land expansions in the future, if you want to read between the lines. Epcot is getting a bunch of new things, and that includes a new makeover of the opening of Epcot, where you first walk in after you pass Spaceship Earth. They're going to completely transform it, give it a modern update. But that's not the big news. The big news in Epcot is 2 new rides, and that is the Guardians of the Galaxy ride and a Ratatouille ride. The Ratatouille ride is going to go in Paris. They're going to add it to a space that's next to Paris, and they're not destroying anything that's already there. And the Ratatouille ride is that trackless vehicle ride that is already in Disneyland Paris, and a lot of people already love. So that's going to come to Epcot and Walt Disney World. A Guardians of the Galaxy attraction was announced for Epcot, but they have not really revealed any information. From what I've heard, it's kind of going to be kind of like a dark ride, roller coaster with animatronics and whatnot. You can see concept art on slashfilm.com. More news for Walt Disney World is at the Magic Kingdom. They're going to be bringing the Tron ride to Tomorrowland, and it's not going to be taking over existing space. It's going to be taking over space next to Space Mountain, which is kind of cool. And they have officially, after a lot of teasing, announced that Marvel is opening, or they're going to be opening up a Marvel-themed land in Disney California Adventure. That Spider-Man and the Avengers are coming to DCA, but they did not reveal any details. That much was disappointing. The other big news to come out of the Disney Parks panel is Disney confirming that they are going to be adding immersive stays at the Disneyland or Disney resorts, and one of those coming up is a Disney Star Wars hotel, which is going to be in Florida next to Hollywood Studios. And this hotel will be a luxury experience. We've written about it because Disney did surveys about it. We don't know how much it'll cost, but expected to cost a lot. But it's going to be one of those things where when boarding this hotel, it's basically like you're leaving Earth. It's almost like a ride in itself. You're leaving Earth to the space station, and your room looks like it's a part of the space station that has windows out to space. I'm not sure if they're just accomplishing that with screens, but there's restaurants with droids, and there's all sorts of things, activities, and again, your experience, this whole interactive role-playing experience, it follows you throughout not just the parks, but also your hotel, and things that can happen in the parks can follow you to the hotel, which is actually kind of cool. They didn't reveal too much. I'm sure we'll hear more about this as it is being built, but also that when you stay there, you will be given proper attire. So imagine if there was a place you could stay in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter that, you arrive there and they give you the Hogwarts robes, and, you have to wear that. It sounds like really geeky, but a lot of fun. They also announced that the New York hotel in, I believe Tokyo, is it? No, Paris. Sorry, Disneyland Paris. The former Hotel New York is going to be transformed to New York, the Art of Marvel, and they're basically going to be renovating that hotel into a Marvel hotel, which is still going to look New York like, but it's going to look like a museum with all sorts of props, costumes, and things. You can see concept art on slashfilm.com, and they also announced a brand new transportation system for Disney World, Disney World, where basically you can, it's going to be these gondolas that connect all the different parks, and you can take them. So it's going to be something that's going to be much better than that bus shuttle system, which I've always hated. I wish they had more monorails, but they don't. That only connects a couple parks and hotels. Anyways, all that and more, slashfilm.com. We're getting to the 30-minute time limit. Thank everybody. Thank you all for listening. Thank anybody that came up to me at D23. I had a lot of Slash Film fans. Some of you who have said that you've been listening and loving the podcast. So I very much appreciate the kind words. Tomorrow, we're going to San Diego. The whole team, or a lot of the team is heading down to San Diego and for Comic-Con, which starts on Wednesday night. So it does not stop, folks. I'm going to try to do some podcasts from San Diego. I'm not sure how that's going to go because I've never done remote podcasts before, but this is called Slash Film Daily, so I gotta try to make it work. But please, if you like this podcast, go to iTunes, write a review, read it. If you don't like this podcast, send me an email, peter@slashfilm.com. I promise you I will read it. I might not respond to everything, but I will read it and we will consider it. And if you have emails for the future mailbag segments, send it to that address, peter@slashfilm.com. And please leave your name and geographic location in case we want to mention it on the air. Again, thank you all for listening, and we will see you tomorrow.